After performances of Seven in January 2017, we held panel discussions concerning the important issues brought up in the play. Our first panel discussion featured Russian activist Marina Pisklakova-Parker and Elise Nelson, the president, CEO, and co-founder of Vital Voices Global Partnership. She is the author of the best-selling book, Vital Voices, The Power of Women Leading Change Around the World, which shares the stories of remarkable, world-changing women.
Many of you may know Vital Voices is actually 20 years old. We've been working with women like the seven that you heard from, each of them real women like Marina, over those past 2 decades. And I think over that time, you can see that these women are very, very different. I mean, they come from different cultures and different generations, different countries. But there is one thing that really does unite them. And that's that each of you and each of the other 6 women made a choice in your life. And you obviously faced with a difficult situation that happened to you, something that you discovered as you did, Marina, an experience that you had, and you made a choice to sort of take the more difficult path. And that's what we at Vital Voices believe that true leadership is really about. When faced with something, not to look the other way, but to go straight forth into it and make positive change. In that 20 years, I think that Vital Voices has seen great progress in almost every area, from economic development, girls' education. We've moved forward tremendously in 2 decades, as one would hope. But there is one issue, and you're very aware of it, where we haven't moved forward. In fact, I would say, it might be fair to say we've even potentially moved backwards. Things have gotten worse, and that's violence against women in its many forms. And it is the one issue, I think, that unites us across different generations and cultures, It is something that no, country is free from, no woman anywhere in the world is protected from. And I just wonder, in those 20 years, what has changed for you? I know there's been some recent slides backwards on the issue of domestic violence in particular. Can you talk a little bit about the events in Russia in recent weeks where the parliament has really, I guess, decriminalized the issue of domestic violence in particular?
Yes. 20 years with Vital Voices, 20 years in the movement, in the international movement, and over 20 years working with the issue of violence against women. It's tremendous experience, challenge, and last summer I thought we can finally celebrate something. Because last summer we were able to push for legislative change in Russia when minor domestic violence became criminal. And actually, first time since revolution, 1917, there was a definition of violence in intimate relationship that was presented in the legislation. And it was signed into the law in July last year. And it was not a full victory because it was not a full law that we wanted to be in place, but it was in our hope, it was a very significant first step. Prior to that, for 3 years, I was a chair of the working group under the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, actually drafting this legislation. We had a lot of expertise from all over the country, and it was going forward with a lot of difficulties, but it was going forward. And even in October of 2015, the president supported the idea of this legislation, and it was basically with his support we were able to put it forward. But then in August 2016, one of the conservative parliament members, Elena Mizulina, said that actually this is against Russian tradition, and that it's much worse to offend a man than to beat a woman. And her and 3 other members of the parliament, all women, presented a draft to decriminalize domestic violence. Basically, put it back to where it's okay to hit a wife or other relative in the family, and there will be no. Basically, it becomes a private prosecution when women have to go and again prove themselves that they've been abused. And the consequence is just a fine, which will come out of a family budget, and we know all that women will not complain. I can tell you that according to our statistics of the national helpline that we run now, over 70% of women that call our helpline never go to anybody else. They don't call to the police, they don't call social services, they don't go even to other NGOs. So the silence about domestic violence is high enough already. And this decriminalization will make it even worse. And it actually happened day before yesterday. Now it will go to the president when he will decide to sign it into the law or not. But in spite of that, I can tell you that I think there is a tremendous change, because this inspired a lot of publications in the media in Russia. It also inspired a protest march that will happen on February 4th. But the best thing for me about that is that it's not us who initiated it. It's regular women. There are 2 women who went and registered this march and started a campaign on Facebook. And I think that says, and now they invite abused women to come and speak, tell them their stories in this meeting. There was a solidarity march on January 21st in Poland. There was a solidarity action in Armenia. And I think it's also a ripple effect of the march here in the US and solidarity marches around the globe. I think this helps women to find voices again and start speaking out.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think one of the things that we've learned over 20 years of working with extraordinary women like you is that at the end of the day, you can't legislate change. You know, people have to believe it. They have to want it. They have to want to behave differently. There's this great African proverb that I know if Hafsat was here, she would remind us of. And it says that if you want to understand culture, listen to the stories. But if you want to change culture, change the stories. And I wonder in your work, and I mean, you think about this, Seven is ultimately an incredible story, you know, a piece of theater that helps people think in different ways. And I wonder how often in your work you see how you can shift culture, how you can use culture to shift culture, the way that Seven is as it's gone out around the world.
Well, there is a piece in the play speaking about Damastroy, the household rules in Russia, and the saying, he beats you, it means he loves you. That was actually the first phrase that we took for the awareness campaign back since 1996. We designed posters with this saying, and we just, it says, he beats you, it means he loves you. Does it really mean love? And then statistics about domestic violence in Russia. And we started using these to make people think, to question the real excuse for domestic violence, like this is a private matter, this is a home, and it's not okay there is another proverb in Russia, don't bring garbage out of your home. So keep everything inside, behind the walls. And we started using all of that to change. Also, Russia is a very big and diverse country, and we have areas where crimes of honor also have a very high level of happening, especially lately. We had several cases in the shelters when women from Northern Caucasus, when they fled to Moscow, their families came and found them and retrieved them. And one woman disappeared after that because this is the honor crime. She dishonored her family because she left her abusive husband and she took their kids with her. So using culture is necessary. It's not just needed, we must use it. Because you're right, we cannot change anything if we don't change beliefs, if we don't change system of beliefs, if we don't... I can give you another example. In the Caucasus, in the Northern Caucasus, we found a lot of violation of women's rights with cases of bridal abduction. It's when women are kidnapped for the forced marriage, honor killings, and just a very high level of violence against women. So what we did, first we did a research and we learned what are the Muslim traditions and what are tribal traditions. And then we were able to involve imams saying that violence is not okay, violence against women in a family is not okay. But we also started using stories and proverbs and sayings about women that have a positive image of women, that raise status of women in this culture. And with that, we designed also educational materials. And we had a very interesting story when we developed a poster against domestic violence and messages on domestic violence that we would use in some like central parts of Russia wouldn't work there. So we found a citation of a poet from that area. It says, only a weak man can hit a woman. Or in another way saying it, it's a destiny of a weak man to hit a woman. So basically it's not about strength, it's about weakness. And when we gave it to the group in Chechnya and suggested that they test it, they said, no, it will not work because this poet is from Dagestan, another area of Northern Caucasus. So we need to find our own. And they started searching and they consult and they found some phrase from like a Muslim citation. But then they came to their local imam and asked him, what do you think about that? He said, no, this citation is from some forbidden text. You cannot use it. It's better to use Rasul Gamzatov, the poet. So it came back to that. And as a result, it was actually a very good campaign. They also had campaigns with young men. It was a photo session when young men were holding signs saying, I will always respect women, or I will never hit a woman. So I think changing culture comes through taking action and also really everybody taking responsibility for that action and taking it really deeply inside of themselves, making it their value and belief system.
Yeah. And we have to think creatively to do that. And certainly the arts are so important. There's another woman in the Vital Voices Network, Penmela Castro, who Marina knows well, and she's a graffiti artist. And when she learned, and she didn't know it before, when she learned that domestic violence, and she'd been a victim, a survivor of domestic violence, when she learned it was a crime in Brazil, she went out to the favelas, the slums of Rio, where she grew up, and she knew that many women and men were illiterate. And so she began to do these incredible murals, this graffiti, which is very popular in Rio, and really depicting the fact that, women actually do have rights. And she really brought about incredible change. And it really started with the culture and just affecting people in different ways. And I think the arts can be so powerful with that. The other thing that we've certainly used as a tool was mentioned in the play by Laura, talking about engaging men. And you talk about shifting culture. Obviously, having men as advocates to combat violence against women is so important. And we have an awards program every year called Voices of Solidarity, where we honor men. And there was a wonderful man we honored this year from Tecate, which is a brand of beer in Mexico, under Heineken's larger brand. And they put out these ads that basically say, if you beat women, we don't want your business. And it was a huge risk, and it reaped huge rewards. It was extremely powerful. So I think sometimes we think that maybe disrupting culture will not be so popular, but actually it stops and makes people think, and actually does exactly do that. Did you want to say something else?
Well, I just want to support that, and I can say that we also started working on engaging men. And there is a group of young men that started a fatherhood program. Basically, originally it started as a program that helps men to prepare for a childbirth, but then it grew to equal parenting, to just the fatherhood. Now this program is expanding, and it's very creative. They have courses where they use Lego, and they show what parents can do with kids. But it's I think the difference with this program from other programs that just teach men how to help a wife when they're raising kids. It's not helping a mother, it's being a father, it's being an equal parent. And I think that is also a very important step.
Can I ask you, Marina, you are in the trenches every day doing this work, which I know, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, as you just told us about. How do you think being in a play like this has impacted your work? Having your story told. I think it's been translated in more than a dozen languages, performed all over the globe by men, by women. It's really gone far and wide. What's the impact of that?
Once in The Hague, I actually asked the audience. There was an audience of students at the Social Institute, and they asked us questions on the stage, and then I asked, can I ask you a question? And I asked them, how did it change you? What did it do to you? And one man said, I will never look the same way to my mother and my sister. And it says a lot. I also think that 7 is a woman's story. Yes, it's based on our personal stories, but there are tens of thousands of women around the globe in different communities that do the same. Maybe nobody knows their names, but they face the same struggle. Women, human rights activists, always face double threat. One is from a state and another from the society, because they always go against the culture, and because culture will always resist, and we see that in different forms. So I think this play is significant because it's basically a story of a woman activist around the globe in any community.
It's so right. And just to close, I want to ask you just one more question. The 6 women that are featured in this play with you, obviously we lost one, Inez McCormick, a couple years ago. But you have a really strong bond. And obviously the network of Vital Voices is even larger, 15,000 women around the globe. And there is something that unites all of you, even through all those differences. And I just wondered if you could talk about the power of having a network of women who are different than you, but are united around the fact that they are all in their own way trying to make the world a better place. And although, not everyone knows their names, they are not household names, but we all feel the impact of their touch. We feel it in terms of them making the world a better place. What's the impact of that for you?
Well, I always loved a chance to get together around a table with Vital Voices women, because it's really not just a rich experience of best practices. It's unique in terms how we share what we do, and then we find commonalities and we find differences, and we try to figure out how to help each other. I don't know. Like when Inez McCormick used to be at this, I loved just listening to her. She was not just a spirit, a free spirit, a powerful spirit, fantastic person, but she also would always notice, like if somebody is exhausted or somebody is down, this sense of care for everyone, and there were like 100 of us at the table. She would notice everything. When I am in a room with women like that, I know that it's a tremendous potential and a great power there. And I think,
Marina, one time you said the Vital Voices takes care of those who are taking care of the world.
yes.
And it's such an honor for us to have the ability to do that.
Yes, and giving women like me, when I started working on the helpline, it was volunteer. I didn't know a word proposal. I didn't even know that it can be funded by somebody. I didn't know how to mainstream the issue. I didn't have really a lot of skills. I had
a lot of passion.
I had a lot of true belief. I just really wanted to help these women, and then having training, and an opportunity to speak to different audiences, and figuring out how to really make a statement, how to mainstream an issue. I think it's really a great power, and it's Vital Voices is unique in this sense because it's a combination of really personal care and professional and support of the professional growth.
And I know I said that was the last question, but I have to ask because it's so of the moment. Our founder, of course, Hillary Clinton. I know you have a very close relationship with her, as a number of other women in the network, certainly the 7 women do. Any thoughts?
Well, actually, in 1995, at the Beijing conference, when I came there, it was just, really 2 years after I started the helpline and started actually finding out that there is a movement, because I started it alone. And at the Beijing conference, I remember listening to Hillary Clinton speaking about violence against women as a violation of human rights. And I remember all of us coming out of there so inspired to me, it was really eye-opening because, when you come from a small office where you work in isolation for quite a while, you don't really know how it is in other countries, and that this issue is really a significant issue at the global level. But also I felt a part of something really bigger that gave me a lot of inspiration. And then in 1996 in Vienna, at the first, in our region, the first Vital Voices conference, when Hillary Clinton said, democracy without women is not a democracy, I remember how not just me, the whole delegation came to Russia saying, wow, you know what, it's true. It was really an inspiration. I admire...
and that was a radical idea back then.
It was totally, but it was so true. Mm. It's like nobody said it like that before. It was really powerful. And I think Women's March that happened in the US and around the globe, I think this is really an act of solidarity and support. It is also a sign that when we think that we had a victory, it's not true. I think we need to refocus, regroup, and go forward. To me, I admire Hillary Clinton. I admire her also as a human being because I knew her not in front of the audience, not in front of the media. I think what media did to her was very unfair. When we sit down and talk, me, Inez, her, and some others, she's one of us. She really deeply cares for women, and she really sincerely, deeply cares for women's rights. That I know, and it's my personal experience. And I think she's one of us, and it's always will be like that.
Well, thank you so much, Marina, and thank you all.